Vacation season is nearly upon us. I know I'm going away soon, and I'm going to be treating myself to the luxe upgrades that I deserve with Quince's high-quality travel essentials and at fair prices. Like lightweight European linen styles from $30, washable silk tops and comfy lounge sets, with premium luggage options and stylish tote bags to carry it all. And the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Because by partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts the cost of the middleman and then passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes, and I love that. My favorite right now, get the organic gauze shirt. My favorite is the Bayside stripe. Get it in that one. You're going to love it. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades that you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/KKC for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/KKC to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/KKC. Looking for a new beautiful, durable, and sustainably made rug at an accessible price? You've got to check out Revival Rugs. I just swapped out my son's rug. I got an 8x10 in sweatshirt. It is so soft on your feet. And if you're a parent like me, you're going to want to check out their popular line of washable rugs because they have the same high quality look and feel as a traditional rug. If your kids or your pets get your rug dirty, you can just pop it in the washing machine and it comes out fresh and clean. And I love that. Plus, they're a sustainable company. They use eco-friendly materials, including wool, cotton, recycled denim, and recycled polyester. It's a brand you can feel good about, and they've got affordable prices so your wallet can feel good too. Visit revivalrugs.com/realitylife and use the code KateCasey20 for 20% off your first order. That's revivalrugs.com/realitylife, code KateCasey20. One more time, revivalrugs.com/realitylife with code KateCasey20 to save 20% off your order.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey. On the morning of April 19th, 1995, an ex-Army soldier and security guard named Timothy McVeigh parked a rented Ryder truck at the north entrance of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City. It was a 4,800-pound ammonium nitrate fuel oil bomb. Timothy McVeigh got out of the van, locked the door, and headed toward a getaway car and ignited it. It was 9:02 a.m. The aftermath looked like a war zone. A third of the Murrah building had been reduced to rubble. Many of the floors were flattened. Dozens of cars were incinerated, and more than 300 nearby buildings were damaged or destroyed. 168 people died, including 19 children, of whom 15 were in the America's Kids Daycare Center. 850 people were injured. The governor's office reported that 30 children were orphaned, 219 children lost at least one parent, 462 people were left homeless, and 7,000 people lost their workplace. The city of Oklahoma City's final report estimated property damage to be more than 300 buildings in that 48 square block area. The bombing remains the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history. 2 years earlier, the first World Trade Center bombing had occurred in New York, so there were reckless media accusations that the perpetrators were Islamic terrorists. When the FBI arrived and began supporting rescue efforts, they also began their investigation. On April 20th, the rear axle of the Ryder truck was located, which yielded a vehicle identification number. It was traced to a body shop in Junction City, Kansas. Employees at the shop helped the FBI quickly put together a composite drawing of that man who had rented the van. The local hotel employees supplied a name, Tim McVeigh. Surprisingly, McVeigh was already in jail. He'd been pulled over about 80 miles north of Oklahoma City by an observant Oklahoma State trooper who had noticed a missing license plate on his yellow Mercury Marquis. McVeigh had a concealed weapon and was arrested. It was just 90 minutes after the bombing. Agents found traces of the chemicals used in the explosion on McVeigh's clothes and a business card on which he had suspiciously scribbled, "TNT at $5 a stick, need more." McVeigh's extremist ideologies and his anger over the events at Waco 2 years earlier were realized. They had discovered that Terry Nichols helped build the bomb, and Michael Fortier was aware of the bomb plot. The perpetrators were military veterans of the Gulf War who found persuasive the conspiratorial worldview of militia culture. They viewed the bombing as a justifiable act against the United States government. They considered those that were killed, in McVeigh's words, as collateral damage. McVeigh was found guilty on all counts on June 2, 1997, and was executed on June 11, 2001. Terry Nichols was found guilty of conspiracy and manslaughter on December 24, 1997, and sentenced to life in prison with no parole. Michael Fortier was sentenced to 12 years in prison on May 27, 1998. Though the bombing was quickly solved, the investigation turned out to be one of the most exhaustive in FBI history. The Bureau conducted more than 28,000 interviews, followed some of the 43,000 investigative leads, amassed 3.5 tons of evidence, and reviewed nearly 1 billion pieces of information. Oklahoma City bombing American Terror is now streaming on Netflix as of Friday. This gripping documentary revisits the shocking 1995 bombing of an Oklahoma City federal building, the deadliest act, as I said, of domestic terrorism in U.S. history. My guests in this episode are Amy Downs, who worked as a bank teller at the Federal Employees Credit Union in the building, and Walter Lamar, who spent 18 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, where he served as Special Agent, Supervisory Special Agent. In 1995, he was twice presented the FBI Shield of Bravery for actions taken in the immediate aftermath of the Oklahoma City federal building bombing, and the second for exhibition of bravery while engaged in a running gun battle with an armed felon. Here are my interviews with Amy and Walter. Amy, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This story is unthinkable. It's April 19th, 1995. 9 o'clock, you walk into work, or at least that is when the doors open to the credit union, and you begin to welcome members. The bomb is detonated at 9:01. What happened after 9:01 a.m.?
That particular morning, it's a beautiful spring morning. I got to work at 8 o'clock, which I usually did. And the first hour of the day before we opened at 9, I was just running around chatting with all my friends. And I remember as it got close to 9 o'clock, I was thinking, wow, I have been goofing off the first hour of the day. I better get to work before I get in trouble. I worked on the 3rd floor, front and center of the building, about 20 feet from the front glass windows. And so I went to sit down at my desk to start working. A girl was sitting next to me, a coworker who was 7 months pregnant. I turned to ask her what she needed, and I don't think the words ever made it out of my mouth. That's when the bomb went off. And I just remember hearing this incredible roaring, like it was so loud, and screaming all around me, and this popping noise, like whether it was the fertilizer exploding or the building popping, I'm not sure, but this rushing sensation, like I was falling. And I found out later that I was falling 3 floors, and I landed and was buried under about 10 feet of rubble, still in my desk chair, upside down under all this rubble. And then everything was quiet, and I was screaming for help, but there was nobody answering.
So you're sitting at your desk, and then you were essentially falling through floors of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And as that's happening, are you aware of things around you? Do you feel like you're still in your body?
There was a moment where I guess you could describe it as an out-of-body experience. I never thought about that. But I remember wondering when everything went silent and I couldn't move and I couldn't see. I remember wondering if I was dead. So there was a big disassociation from my body, I guess, because I didn't know where I was. I couldn't feel. I was numb, so I couldn't feel my body. I couldn't see anything. And I remember thinking, did I die? And then I heard a siren going off in the distance and thought, no, I'm still alive. I can hear a siren. But yeah, it was a very weird feeling.
Could you hear others moaning or crying or screaming?
No, it went there was screaming and then there was nothing. And then when I would scream for help, a couple of times I thought I heard somebody moaning. And so I would call out to the girl that was sitting next to me. But then I wouldn't hear anything after that.
So as time goes on, and you were there for about 6.5 hours, and then there was word that there may have been a second bomb. So that further delayed. So in total, how long were you sitting there in the rubble?
I was told it was around 6.5 hours. The whole time, upside down in the chair, can't see anything, can't move the whole time until they said, okay, let's count to 3 and pull. And they were able to free me. So it was a long time of being stuck.
And what do you think of in those 6.5 hours? Did it feel like 6.5 hours? Did it feel like a short amount of time? And did you fall asleep at all?
I remember trying to fall asleep. I remember when the second bomb scare came and they had to leave and they were all screaming, there's another bomb, get out now. So I knew that's why my rescuers were leaving. During that time, I remember trying to make myself fall asleep. I remember thinking maybe if I could just fall asleep, I would die in my sleep and it wouldn't hurt, or something like that. And that's impossible. You can't force yourself to fall asleep. So that didn't work. I remember, just during that time, it was a lot of praying, bargaining. I just wanted a second chance at life. Just if I will do anything, if I could just get out and get a second chance at life.
Now, while they're trying to get to you, who's at home waiting to hear information about where you are?
All of my family. So my sister in Shreveport, Louisiana, she had been at her bank making a deposit and had put everything in the tube, and was waiting for the teller. And she said the teller was super distracted and finally came to the window and apologized. Said, I'm so sorry, but I'm watching this stuff about the bomb. And my sister didn't know. And she said, yeah, there was this federal building in Oklahoma City that was blown up and everybody was killed. And my sister just froze. And she said she left everything in the tube and just drove home. And she lived next door to my mom. And then my sister in Oklahoma City was calling them. And they just, at that point, had to watch the news because, we didn't have cell phones really back then. If you did, you had some giant suitcase you carried, but they just glued themselves to the news trying to, find out what was going on.
I'm off to Hawaii soon, and I've been looking for great dresses, suits, bags, and sandals for my trip. You know who else needs stuff? My almost 16-year-old daughter. Now, where can I find all of those things in one place? Revolve. And I know that you love Revolve too. Over 1,200 brands and 100,000 styles from across high-end, emerging, and exclusive labels in fashion, beauty, and home goods. Consistently offering the latest and most sought-after trends in fashion from top brands like Lovers and Friends, Love Shack Fancy, Misa, and Zimmermann. I just ordered a pink Japanese dress, a gold clutch, gold sandals, and a monogram necklace, and I might even wear it to my niece's graduation too. Authentic, high-quality products, new arrivals daily, inclusive sizing. From last-minute getaways to party dressing and seasonal upgrades, Revolve has you covered with fast 2-day shipping and easy returns, all on them. And for a limited time, you can shop a curated selection of my favorite styles at revolve.com/Kate Casey and receive 15% off your first order with code Kate Casey. That's revolve.com/Kate Casey to shop my top picks and get 15% off your first order with code Kate Casey. The offer is only valid for a limited time, so do not miss out. If you were to look at my tote bag, you would find my essentials, sunblock for my fair skin, about 14 lipsticks, hair elastics, my phone, and Liquid IV. My goal this year has been to keep up my hydration, and Liquid IV is a must-have hydration made easy. True to fruit flavors that keep you hydrated, and you can find all your favorite hydration multiplier flavors on their website, from lemon lime to pina colada, or you can choose from their line of sugar-free flavors like raspberry lemonade, white peach, and rainbow sherbet. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, and they're always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. So you too can break the mold and own your own ritual. Just 1 stick and 16 ounce of water hydrates better than water alone. So ready up for a long day with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code Kate Casey at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with the code Kate Casey at liquidiv.com. So as you're released, can you go back to that moment? Do you remember the moment where you saw any source of light, a voice?
Oh, yeah. No, I remember when they said, okay, we're going to count to 3 and pull. This is probably going to hurt. And of course, I was like, do whatever. And they counted 3 and they pulled. And I remember looking around, and my first thought was, this is not real. I'm in a movie. Like, that was the only thing it was not real. And I saw the staircase that went to the first floor. And that's the first time I realized I was not on the 3rd floor anymore. I looked and I was like, wait, I'm on the 1st floor. The staircase was perfectly intact and everything else was destroyed. That staircase had Native American artwork hanging on it, which is how I recognized it. And they put me on the back of a gurney, took me out of the back of what was once the building. And it was gray and dark, starting to rain. And that morning, it had been a beautiful spring morning. It was like all of a sudden we went back to winter. And I just remember looking up at the sky and promising God I would never live my life the same. If I made it through, I would not live it the same.
At that point, what sort of injuries were you facing?
I didn't know at that point, but I found out later in the hospital. My largest injury was my leg was split open, essentially. My bone was intact, but my leg, I had a very large opening in my leg.
Of the coworkers that were with you that morning, how many lost their lives?
18 of my 33 coworkers were killed.
Who was the first person that you worked with that you were able to speak to?
I don't remember which one was first. I just remember one of my coworkers, Terry, we found out was across the hall from me in the hospital. And she had been blinded by asbestos that was in her eyes. And and also had been unconscious. So she came to, and they wheeled her hospital bed into my room. And I remember we didn't even speak. We just put our arms out from our beds and just held hands and cried together. I remember that.
When you have an experience like this, do you feel like you're forever bonded to them?
Yes. Oh, 100%. 100%. She and I might not talk to her in months, and it doesn't matter. Like, we know, we can just instantly pick back up. And always every spring, one of us, whenever that time of year we start feeling the emotions, one of us will text the other one and go, hey, how are you doing? It's starting. How are you feeling? So yeah, we definitely have a bond.
Will you share something about one or more of your coworkers that lost their lives?
Yeah. So I'll tell you about my work bestie. So Sonia, she's funny. She's had 2-year-old and 3-year-old baby girls. And the morning of April 19th, they were having a supervisor meeting, and she had just been promoted to vault teller. So it was her first leadership meeting that she was going to attend. Back in the day, they used to tell women to wear a power suit or a power tie, if they wanted to be taken seriously in a meeting. So when she came to work, she said, y'all, I tried to pick out a power suit, but I look like a big old yellow sunflower. She had picked out a bright yellow jacket and skirt. Like, she looked amazing, but it was bright yellow. We just laughed with her and we're like, you look great. Like, go do your thing. And so she went into that leadership meeting. And later, of course, it was just devastating to think about that they're her girls, her baby girls weren't going to have a mama. But her girls have grown up. They are best friends. They've had each other their whole lives. They are very close. And one of her daughters actually came to work for me for quite a few years. And it's so weird because even though she didn't grow up with her mom, she's exactly like her. Like, her
really?
Yes, she's funny. Her mannerisms. I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally called her Sonia because she's just like Sonia.
Wow. Well, this is an extraordinary part to the story, is what you did professionally and personally after April 19th. So I guess the first question I have is, what were the residual health issues that you may have experienced, and as well as any emotional?
Probably the emotional is the big thing. What I had happen physically compared to everybody else is just nothing. I had the wound that had to heal from the inside out, took a while. just lacerations, cuts, some numbness, that kind of thing, but nothing bad. But the emotional journey was, still is sometimes difficult, survivor's guilt, things like that. That was the hardest part. I think just trying to work your way through that much grief and trauma, it's a bit difficult. So I'm a huge fan of counseling, huge fan when you need help to get it, and then, I think even now, having to recognize, when you're having PTSD triggers and that it's normal for what you've been through, and just having grace with yourself. Like this time of year for myself, sometimes I'll pack my schedule too tight and I have to remember okay, it's this time of year, you need to give yourself more downtime to just go play out in the garden, give your time, because it's the anniversary always brings a little bit of an emotional challenge to me.
What is the best way that we can honor those that lost their lives on that day and also those that were survivors?
Yes, that is a great question. Just the first thing that comes to my head is unity. It's okay that we all have all these differences, political and all those things. That's okay that we don't always agree and see eye to eye on those things. We can still have unity. We can still come together as people and love each other. And I just wish I would see more of that. And what makes me think of that is the way Oklahoma responded, and actually the whole country, when the bombing happened. People came together in the face of this evil. We came together for good. And I'd love to see more of that. Let's do that more.
Well, tell everybody what you went on to do professionally, because I think this is extraordinary.
Well, okay. So I was a teller. And I was an awful teller. I had flunked out of a math class. Math is still like a struggle. But afterwards, I went back to college and I got my degree and I got my master's. And then the credit union was so special to me at this point that I couldn't imagine if my CEO was going to retire. It was like my baby. Like I felt like I wanted to protect it. So I did everything that I could to make myself be the ideal CEO candidate so that I could get her job when she left and that I could protect this baby, And so I went on to become CEO of the credit union, and I was CEO for 7 years, a little over 7 years. And then I have an amazing executive team. So I didn't want to be that CEO that overstayed. So about a week ago, I actually retired early to let the next level step up and take over and go into my next chapter, which is I do a lot of speaking.
Well, there's nobody better for it. When you look back at who you were before April 19th, 1995, and you look at yourself now, what are you most proud of?
It's crazy. It really is crazy when I look at it. You know what? I'll tell. Okay, that's not a fair question. That's difficult. What am I most proud of? I'm proud of a lot of things, but there is one thing that is so weird if I answer this really honestly. I think I'm proud of doing an Ironman because I was 355 pounds back then. So I went on a health and fitness journey and started riding a bicycle and then running and then learned to swim. And when I turned 50, I went to Arizona and did Ironman Arizona, which is a 2.4 mile swim followed by a 112 mile bike ride and then a 26.2 marathon, all within time cuts to be declared an Ironman. I came in last, but that's okay. I did it. And so I became an Ironman. And to me, it was very symbolic to just show me that just because I don't have an athlete's body. We put ourselves in these boxes that we think, well, this is all I can do. This is all I am. But you're capable of so much more if you want the thing, if you're willing to put the time toward the thing, you can do it. And so that whole experience just taught me that I'm capable of more if I want it, and I'm willing to put the time toward it.
So on April 19th, you are flipped over, fall 3 floors, upside down for 6.5+ hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then years later, at age 50, you were reminded yourself of your own physical strength and your emotional strength, that you were able to walk away from that moment and then ultimately become CEO and represent the people that you work with. It's pretty incredible. What a story.
It's crazy. Crazy.
I'm really grateful that you shared it with me, and I'm so glad everybody else gets to hear it too. And I'm thinking of your coworkers today, and I know that others are too. And I'll be thinking of you on April 19th, as I will every April 19th too. Tell everybody where they can find you and where they can read your book.
amydowns.org. And my book, Hope is a Verb, is available on Amazon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's home project season, and Wayfair is the best kept secret for all things renovation. Whether you're making a little update like a new kitchen cabinet hardware or doing a full renovation, Wayfair has stylish and quality home improvement products for every budget. We live near the beach, so we love coastal decor. Our home is bright and white with blue and neutral tones. And we just recently changed the decor in some of the kids' rooms, and we just found great night tables for Sutton and Caroline's rooms. We loved all of the options available. The Wayfair website is so easy to use, and I could not believe the great prices. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your spring home goals with endless inspiration for every space and budget, whether you need a light refresh or an organizational overhaul. Free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. They even help you set it up. Find all of your home improvement must-haves, from flooring to light fixtures to faucets to hardware, all in one convenient place. Shop the best selection of home improvement online. Get renovating with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home.
I was struggling for the past 1.5 to 2 years with trying to lose weight.
I just can't get rid of the stubborn weight in my legs and in my belly.
While everyone is unique and will have varied results, here are extraordinary experiences from independent body affiliates and actual Belvital users.
There's nothing more frustrating than knowing that you're eating well, but it's not working.
Hormone imbalances were preventing these women from losing weight. Now there's a comprehensive plan to help.
With Belvital, I just noticed changes immediately. That stubborn scale finally moved.
In this first week, I lost 5 pounds.
Just after 1 week, I'm down 6 pounds and all of my bloating is gone.
I just finished the Belvital program. I have lost 15 pounds and I have never felt better.
I've noticed inches just shed every week that I go through.
I feel like an entirely different person.
I don't know if I've ever felt this good.
Get hormone health for women at belvital.com. And while supplies last, save 15% with promo code BV15.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for joining me, but also thank you for your service.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for inviting me to visit with you today.
If you would first do me a favor and walk with me through how your day began on April 19th, 1995.
I was in Oklahoma City. It was I was packing my car. I was at the time an FBI recruiter, and I was heading out to Albuquerque for a recruiting event. And I was putting things in a trunk, and I heard and felt the explosion. So I went back into the house, and I asked my wife if she'd heard it and felt it, and she did. And you know, being a baby boomer, I recall back to the times that we had sonic booms, and I thought, well, maybe that's what it was, a jet aircraft overhead and a sonic boom. But I immediately turned on the television and saw the plume of smoke from downtown, heard the newscasters talking about an explosion, and I thought it was at the federal building. So I immediately said goodbye to my wife. My kids were still asleep. And I put up the red light and siren and headed to downtown. On the way there, and one of the things that in the FBI that we have mental checklists. You start thinking through a mental checklist as you're going that way, thinking about what's potentially there, what kinds of things might I be doing, what kinds of things might I be engaged in, involved in, asked to do, required to do kinds of things. But really, nothing prepared me to be able to take in what I saw when I got there. And I saw, and as I was coming down 6th Street, I parked my car and I was running down 6th Street in Oklahoma City, and I saw the Journal Record building, and I thought, they might be wrong about the federal building, because it looks like it might have been the Journal Record building where the explosion occurred. Then I went around the corner and I saw the federal building. It was unbelievable. So, you're trying to process this, you're trying to figure it out. And I'm still running towards the building. And as I'm realizing that, they're going to need folks probably going into the building to look for survivors and so on. Plus the fact that always in our minds as an FBI agent, we're thinking about the investigation. But as these, particularly lately, as I've thought more about it and I've had an opportunity to preview the documentary, when I left the house that morning and said goodbye to my wife, and unfortunately I didn't get to say goodbye to my kids, little did I know that my life would change that day. And if I get a little emotional as I'm talking about it today, all of this stuff is very raw right now, because having previewed the documentary, having tried to think about all these things and process all these things, it's been interesting, I'll say, but I think it's also been cathartic in a way.
I can understand. It's jarring when you see the documentary and it's literally half of the building is gone, and to hear some of the survivor stories. And certainly the doctor who is looking at all of these potential patients that are in shock outside. You mentioned that as an FBI agent, you're navigating the world of, one, I have to be an investigator, but you also see people in immediate need. How do you navigate that in that moment?
It's a rescue operation. So at that point, that was what the thought was, even though, you're still thinking about the whole area as a crime scene. You're thinking about what things I'm seeing that could potentially be evidentiary in nature. So you still have on your investigator hat, but then you're thinking first and foremost about saving lives. And when you, and I have to say, it's a really kind of strange, because your mind, or at least in this occasion for me, my mind had to kind of close down and focus on things that I could do and I was able to do. Obviously, I was completely occupied during the 19th and the days following, so I didn't really have an occasion to see that stuff. But what was really amazing is how much of it that I blocked out even that day, so that I could continue to function and continue to do what I needed to do, which at that time was to go into the building looking for survivors. So there were a lot of things that were portrayed in the documentary that were all new to me, because either my mind had blocked out some of those things and didn't allow my conscious to see it at the time, or it was things that I just chose not to remember.
What is the reality of the situation as you go into the building looking for survivors? We have debris, you have glass, you're worried about another explosion. Can you hear people tapping or crying or moaning or any of that?
Well, my experience, and I want to say too that hats off to the production crew and Netflix in this documentary, because you think about it, my story is but one of thousands of stories.
Right.
So they have to be able to go through and create a fabric that tells this story, and to be able to use the different stories that are there. But just imagine there are thousands of stories from that day, and mine, but is one story. So when I went into the building, and it's kind of broken up in segments because I went in, and there was an agent from another agency said, "We still have people in there. What should we do?" So I said, "We'll go in there and look for them." So I went in, and when in the building, immediately you're thinking about, is there maybe leaking gas mains? Is there the potential for a spark igniting the gas that could be in the building? Are there exposed electrical wires where you might get electrocuted? Is there and there was the obvious of debris falling. In fact, one of the rescue workers died in the building from debris falling on him. So there were all these things, but you just have to try to create a focus. And the focus was to try to find people and try to find anybody that was still left in the building. So I was working my way up, and I ended up on the 9th floor, the top floor. And there was the U.S. Marshal and one of his deputies and an Oklahoma City police officer, and they were telling me that an ATF agent was trapped up there. So we were shouting his name, and I knew who he was. And we were shouting his name, hollering for him, trying to find him. And that's when the notice came out that there was a secondary device that was potentially found in the building, and everybody had to get out of the building. It was hurry up, get out of the building. So we were rushing out of the building, and the Oklahoma City police officer slipped and fell on structural glass. That structural glass was everywhere. And she slipped and fell. So the two U.S. Marshals grabbed hold of her, and I was right behind, and we were trying to get her out of the building. And once we got down below, we were able to hand her off to a team of medics. And it really was. It was just like, when you see in the movies when everybody's running away, and it's just it's chaotic. It's you're trying to figure out what's really happening. And so I ran down the street. I ran into an agent. He said, "I left somebody alive in the building." So we turned around and we ran back. And that's when it's talked in the documentary. They talk about Amy Downs, and she was in the building. And so this agent and I, we ran back into the building, and I saw three Oklahoma City police officers that I knew, and they were yelling, "Go back, go back." I said, "Well, there's somebody else still alive in the building." So they joined us, and we were posted up across the street, and one of the officers saw a friend of his who was a bomb tech and started waving us in. So they'd cleared whatever it was. And I later learned that it was an inert device. It was used for either an undercover operation or a training operation. So we went in and we found Amy, and I think I said it in the documentary, but it was so strange because in all of this chaos there was a certain calm to it. And at that moment, though, I thought, I wasn't sure that we were going to come out of the building. So I had thought to myself, if I could have just said to my children one more time that I loved them, because I wasn't sure that we'd come out of there. Meeting Amy Downs was incredible that day, and then the 30 years since then, she and I have stayed in touch. She is incredibly inspirational. She even that day when you imagine somebody buried in tons of rubble, and that she wasn't just a screaming mess, yelling, and I mean that's what I would have been doing. But she was calm. She was conversing with us. She was talking to us, and at that time it was myself, another agent, and a fireman who had joined up with us. And then the 3 police officers were up above, and I was handing debris up to them to try to clear enough space where we'd have a room to work. And at one point she said, if you guys get me out of here, I'm going to bake you some chocolate chip cookies. and I have a suspicion, because she mentioned lately that she sent me a package. I have a suspicion that she might have sent me those chocolate chip cookies, but it was a couple of years later. She said, I'm not even sure why I said that, because I didn't even bake at the time. But it was during that point when you ask about, did I hear anything? And I did. And I heard somebody else, and I asked Amy, who was near her when the explosion happened, and she told me. So I started calling out her name and just saying, keep making noise so I can hear, so I can find you.
Was it Sonia?
No. And then as I was shouting her name, saying, we're here, we can help you. The sound stopped. And then I later learned that there was a person, and she probably died right underneath my feet. But my hope is that she would have heard my voice, and she would have heard that somebody was there, and I was saying, we're here, keep making sounds. I'm here with you. I'm with you. So yeah, it was a tough day, but and I will say that the documentary, I think right now it's incredibly timely, and I think it's timely for the reasons and the messages that it conveys. It is a powerful and graphic reminder of the consequence of hate.
Absolutely.
And on April the 19th of 1993, I was at the Branch Davidian standoff in Waco, Texas.
Wow.
And we were down at the compound after right after the fire, and saw the consequence of that.
Two huge moments in history, in that you touched them, and you should feel very proud of the work you've done.
I'm working on it, and I think it's a work in progress, and I hope one day I'll be able to do that. And I hope that so many others, that the message goes out to so many others that were there that day, that it's okay for us to do that, to say that we did good. We did. And there are so many stories beyond my story that that would take hours and hours and hours of documentary to be able to tell. So I just hope that some of the words that I was able to say, and some of my story, that some of those folks, that their stories aren't included in this, that they know that myself and others that were interviewed were speaking for everybody. We're speaking for all of those folks that responded that day, and all of those folks that, instead of running away from this building that had just suffered this incredible devastation, that so many folks ran to that building that day to help others. And that's the humanity that's communicated by this documentary.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Kate. I appreciate you offering your time to help us to continue to tell this story.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my fantastic guests and remind you to make sure that you click subscribe and leave a 5-star review. I would love for you to join the Facebook group Reality Life with Kate Casey. Please make sure that you are subscribed to my What to Watch list, which gives you a list of what to watch in unscripted TV, by going to katecasey.substack.com and clicking that subscribe button. And also bonus episodes by going to Patreon, patreon.com/KKC. And also make sure you follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at KKCCA, TikTok at It's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at @KKC. Check back tomorrow for a very special episode.
At 24, I lost my narrative, or rather it was stolen from me. And the Monica Lewinsky that my friends and family knew was usurped by false narratives, callous jokes, and politics. I would define reclaiming as to take back what was yours. Something you possess is lost or stolen, and ultimately you triumph in finding it again. So I think listeners can expect me to be chatting with folks, both recognizable and unrecognizable names, about the way that people have navigated roads to triumph. My hope is that people will finish an episode of Reclaiming and feel like they filled their tank up. They connected with the people that I'm talking to and leave with maybe some nuggets that help them feel a little more hopeful. Follow Reclaiming with Monica Lewinsky on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Reclaiming early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.